everyone, thank you for watching our YouTube channel. So, what we are talking about today?
Today, we're very, very excited to welcome our dear friend Martha. She'll be talking about her new book, Small Death, published by MACK. And joining her in conversation is Kelly Long.
At the end of the show, we're gonna talk about the favorite book of the month. So, stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Marta Naranjo Sandoval, and I'm an artist and publisher, and I'm here with my dear friend Kelly Long. I met Kelly Long really through a lot of friends and artists and curators in common, including Elizabeth Sherman, who we both really like a lot, and also our dear friend Genesis Baez. So it is a delight to be here with Kelly, who I really think understands my work, to be talking about Small Death, my new book coming out with MACK.
Thank you so much for having me in conversation, Martha. I feel like I've been waiting for this book for a really long time, and we've been talking about it for a really long time, so it feels like a total joy to get to sit here with you and with your lovely book. So I wanted to start maybe by just asking you about the genesis of this book and how it came to be, because you, as part of your practice, as part of your sort of art making practice broadly, are a bookmaker as well as a photographer. So can you talk a little bit about how this came to be?
Yeah, there's multiple ways to answer this, because in many ways I have been dreaming of this book for such a long time. So there's a one moment where I knew this concrete book with MACK Books was gonna happen, but there's also like, I don't even know for how long I have been thinking about how this work would look like in book form. So a year ago around this time in September, I learned that I was actually gonna be publishing a book for real, and that's when like really all of that imagination of like like that imaginary book actually came to be like an actual physical, like I have to I have to land all of that from like the imagination sphere to actually like what it would look like in real life. I have thought about this shape for a while. Like I knew that I wanted it to be like a little block, and I wanted it to be like 300 pages, and I knew how I wanted it to feel.
Yeah.
But I didn't know like the sequence or the layout or how like the book was gonna feel otherwise. And at the beginning it was very hard because I've been taking these pictures for 10 years, and they like span very different things, that it's hard to like know exactly how you're gonna tackle this monster. So because I am good at sequencing scenes also, I thought that instead of trying to like do a whole mammoth sequence, maybe I'll do like small sequences that like all like pull at different strings, and then sequence all of them together. But once I had the sequence, I also felt like pictures just with like white weren't doing what I wanted to do. And that's when I was talking to Justine Kurland about it, and she mentioned like those little scenes that I make, and she was like, well, you already have this language, why don't you just transfer that into the bigger book?
And it was the sort of framing device of the contact sheet with the sprockets that you sort of brought into the book. So you have always sort of this language that is sitting alongside the images, which is so beautiful. And as I sat with this for the first time when you handed this to me, I was struck by so many things, as you say, sort of the hand feel of it, the blockiness, the way that it's kind of small. It wasn't sort of as big as I was expecting. It felt like something I could just sort of hold in this way, which is lovely. The color was striking, but again, the framing device of the sprockets feels like such an incredible choice that unites this with your past work, but I think also does something very specific for the viewer's experience and navigation through this book. Can you talk a little bit about that choice and your feelings about it as you were working with these images, which you've called a swarm, which I love.
Yeah,
we've talked
swarm.
About them as a swarm in the entire book, but also in these sort of containers that you've created with the small self-portraits. So can you talk about just sort of the choices that you made in structuring this book?
Yeah. So I did want you to feel like they were like smaller stories, that it was like not just one big epic, but like little like short stories that were like stringed together. And that's when these like white pages come in, because I wanted it to feel like a beginning and an end at the same time.
Right.
And they're also portraits in a way, because like I did want to emphasize that this, if this is anything, it's a self-portrait, the whole thing altogether. And yeah.
Right. So the way that the book works is you get these sort of self-portraits on white grounds that are smaller, that are, just Martha, usually a tight close-up self-portrait with maybe clues as to different temporalities just based on the way that you look or your haircut. And then these interludes of the sort of framed contact sheet scans, which are so beautiful. So you move through almost chapters or seasons,
Yeah.
but there are different temporalities at play.
Yes. I mean, so in the small portraits, they're all, that's the only thing that's chronological. Like if you see the self-portraits just isolated, you actually see me like grow. But the whole thing, it's actually mixed. Like you don't know what's when or when happened, because it's not really about the chronological order, but more about kind of like what the pictures are doing, if that makes sense. Like and where the pictures like kind of like shine better with what they're doing.
Right. And it's like, it's themes maybe, or maybe that's not precisely the right word. I've talked to you about it as like preoccupations, which maybe isn't quite right either, but we're dancing around something.
I like preoccupations better, because themes seems like a little like easy or something.
Right. And it's something that the viewer can sort of start to intuit or start to feel, maybe even if they don't have the language either.
Yeah.
As even the artist herself does not.
Yeah. And I feel like when you say themes, like then people are like, what's the theme of this one?
Right.
And I feel like
language isn't necessary, maybe.
Yes, exactly. It's about like the feeling, more about like putting like a word to every part of it.
And to that point, I think it's really interesting and a really powerful choice that you have allowed the viewer to drop directly into the images. There's no sort of introductory text that frames this experience. The pages are not numbered, so you really have to sort of embrace the drifting aspect of moving through these images, and there's no necessary linearity to the experience. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe your choice to have the only text, aside from sort of the clue to what kind of film you use on the contact sheets, be at the end and be quite a short text that just gives a few lines about who you are?
Yeah. I come from film. And in film, like your professors are always like, in film school, they're always like, you're never going to be beside the thing to explain it. So it has to like be contained. It has to explain itself. So I very much subscribe to that idea of like, you don't have to explain and the thing can explain itself. That said, I did realize that there were like some little clues that were important, that like if you didn't know that I was an immigrant, or you didn't know that it was the work of 10 years, or you didn't know that the people in there were my family and my loved ones, I think those things were important. So I did want to like drop a little bit of like, so this is what you saw, but not enough that you actually feel like you figured out, because I actually feel like you can't figure out work, and that's the whole point. Like when you are like, this work is about this, then when you arrive there, you're done. You're like, oh thank god, I figured it out. Whereas if like the work is actually expansive and they're actually pointing out other things, then instead of having like answers, you have more questions, and then you engage with it in a different way, and then you put as a viewer something of you in the work too. And I believe that the work is not really complete when I complete it, but like really when people engage with it.
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of images that preoccupied me as I was sitting with this book for the first time. And one of them that I became convinced, as I told Martha, that there was some sort of secret to this image, because it appears at first glance to be the only image in the book that sort of breaks out of that framework of the contact sheets and the sprockets. Maybe you'll find it quicker than I do. The one, the dark one with the blinds. I know these.
I think I know where it is.
I have so many Post-its in this book, but they're not helping me. Here it is. Okay. So this image, which it's such a dark image that it could sort of be held by that container, but the viewer sort of has to decide whether or not it is. And you had like a really interesting perspective on this image as sort of being active in a way that points to a lot of the languages that you're using, the choices that you're making. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, you really were intrigued as to if where the image ended.
Yeah.
Like, is the image expanding or not?
Yeah.
And really what I think is that it kind of doesn't matter, because it's like a ready-made of the whole book.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually like just doing what the rest of the book is doing.
Right.
So it doesn't matter where it ends.
Right.
It's already doing it by itself. And I kind of love that you were intrigued by that. And it like did make me think about, I did think about whether some pictures should expand or not. And I actively decided that there shouldn't, just because then I feel like you should always feel like you're looking at contact sheets. Like, that is like an important thing to the book. So if I decided that some pictures were like, and it would also be like, this picture is more important or something, in a way that I didn't really want to do.
Right. I think what I hear you sort of saying is that this is a version of a look at your practice that is all about the relationality of images. It is that swarm again.
Yes.
In the contact sheets, in the way that you've sort of paired and let images rhyme, let something, as you turn the page, replace what you've just seen, but do something to what you've just seen. There are lots of pairings in here that come to my mind, but are there particular ones that that have felt like anchoring points to you, or that feel particularly resonant? I'm thinking of the spreads with the flags, the Mexican flag and the American flag, which are, even though there's not sort of text that tells you at the beginning, these two places are important to who I am and how I make pictures, there are these generous clues, or even less explicit clues throughout. Maybe someone who knows Mexico City really well will recognize a place where you're making pictures, or a particular corner of Brooklyn.
I mean, and like even the light is so different in different places, and even honestly, I could even recognize seasons when I think like, but I do like respecting whatever the light was there. As a photographer, you feel like an inclination of like everything needs to be neutral,
right?
But I do think that the way that I shoot, I do it in a way that like respects whatever the light, even though like sometimes you see it and you're like, this is too cyan or whatever. The sun is doing a lot of things all the time, and I like respecting whatever it is that the sun is doing.
Right. Yeah, I think of your pictures as, there's a whole range of different light effects and places where you're photographing, but I think of them as existing in sort of the blue and the gold.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah, that's definitely accurate. And back to the pairings that you were saying. I actually, I've been teaching photobook for a while. I've been like editing all of this other people's work. So when I came to this, I had like all of this kind of like ideas of what like sequencing should be. And one of the things that I always like teach my students, and that I think it's very important, is to understand that yes, the most apparent way that like pictures are connected are like spreads, because like you have it, but also like this picture is going to be replaced by this picture, and therefore they're connected, and this picture is behind this picture, therefore that and then this picture and this picture are together in like a millisecond. So there's all of these other ways in which these pictures are connected, and all of that is important, not only like the self-evident, but like and if you actually pay attention, there's all of these like rhymes that are happening. Like when you talk about the flags, like they happen in very, very, very far apart in the book. And if you like remember the one flag and you see like what's beside it, you are also gonna remember the other flag and see what's beside it.
Right.
And you know, one of them is like a very cold image that's beside it. It's like a self-portrait, but it's like a snowy self-portrait, and there's like a cemetery in the back. And the other one, and it's my, you don't have to know this, but it also happens to be my parents-in-law backyard. And then the other one is my parents' backyard, and it is like has like a monstera, and I'm like being like swallowed by a monstera. So there's like these two things, and like if you don't notice that, that doesn't like detract from it, but it is kind of like there if you wanna commit to like finding all of this like little traces. And I do think even if you don't notice it, you do notice it.
Right.
Like there's something inside of you that kind of like internalizes it. Yeah.
I mean, one of the places in the book that I've kept coming back to, and it's, I mean, there's a visual rhyme that I can point to, but it also is something more that I maybe can't point to or verbalize, and it's this incredible strange image of a telephone pole or a utility pole on the street that has just this like almost geology of of posters, of flyers, probably built up over years, that has somehow been cut open or split to make this almost like vulva form or wound like form, and then it sits by itself. But then when you turn the page, there's this incredibly Mendieta-esque photograph of you, Martha, nude in the grass, that feels like an echo, like a rhyme. But could you talk a little bit about these two images? And
yeah, I mean, something that I'm just noticing from you pointing them out, these are like very different kind of pictures that I take. Like there's like different spectrums of pictures that I take. Like this like ready-made kind of like wild like urban picture, and there's like very like posed like self-portrait thing. And one of them I've taken like is one of the first pictures from like the book, and I took it, and at the time kind of like didn't think of it. Like I looked at it in the contact sheets and I didn't pay attention to it. And it wasn't until like went back and looked at contact sheets like now, like years later, that there was something about it that spoke to me.
Right.
And the other one is this like a very purposeful picture, and this is a picture that I've taken a lot. And this particular one with the tall grass, I've been wanting to take for so long, mostly because I do have like this fixation of like sometimes I like close my eyes and see myself this way. And you know, not to get too dark, but there is a dark reason why. And it is purposeful that you can't actually see my face, so you don't actually like, you almost have to like come closer, and I want you to come closer to like check for yourself. And there is a way in which like both of them have like this like their wounds in some ways that when I was sequencing, I was like, these two are friends. Like they do have to like live not next to each other, but like they have to be like connected.
Right. Wound is a word that you've used to title an exhibition previously, Flowering Wound, at Baxter Street Camera Club of New York. And I'm so interested in sort of the tension that I feel like is maybe always on some level operating in your work between the beauty and sweetness and delicacy and something a little bit darker, something with an edge, something maybe a little bit grotesque or bloody, or with the potential for violence in it. And I feel like that duality, and maybe also sometimes it's the tension between humor and darkness, which feels really operable. And I mean, there are other photographs in the book besides the one of you in the grass, I think, that maybe are places where that crystallizes for me. And they're photographs where, like this is a good example, where I see this and knowing you and knowing how funny you are and your sense of humor, like my first impulse is to laugh and like, oh, Martha is a meteor and she's hit planet Earth and here she is. But there's also the potential for maybe a darker reading of this, the idea of a body subjected to violence, the relationship between bodies and our planet and the Earth and the city and the potential for violence there. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is kind of like what I talk about when I'm like, the picture is not finished when I do it, and I do think the picture contains all readings. Like all the readings are valid. It is funny, and it's also dark, and it kind of depends on you which one you kind of like are gravitating towards, and maybe at times you're towards one and then at times you are towards one.
Right.
And I'm happy that you're pulling
Yeah.
up this one,
This is
because I
another
think
one.
this picture, really when I'm like looking, like when I'm showing this book to people, they do have like kind of like a strong reaction.
Yeah.
And it's either like they laugh,
Right.
or they're like are like they're like very moved in a kind of like a darker way.
Yeah.
Because it is, if you read it like it's like a cartoony thing, and I'm like a thing that like, you know, like a cartoon, then it's funny. Or even if you think of me, Martha, like laying down in the grass,
Right.
that's funny. But if you think about, maybe it's like the product of being dragged through the mud, then, you know, that's not funny.
Right.
And it's not even not funny, but it is like, I keep trying to think of this word, and I can only think of the word in Spanish, which is desgarrador. Just like something that is like really like pulls into your insides,
Yeah.
like pushes you. So, and I think that's the point. It's both. And it almost like, whatever was my intention, it really doesn't matter, because like all of that is there. And like partly is like, because like, you know, it is a portrait, and like people are complicated. You know, you're not one person at a time, you're all of these other things.
Right.
And also, if we're like actually gonna talk about being an immigrant and all of these things, there's all of this complicated ways in which things are easy and hard at the same time, and sometimes just existing, and sometimes just like, you know, now like there's all of these things where like, you know, that you're at the mercy of all of these forces that have nothing to do with you. So, you know, that was like partly also what I was thinking about, like, with all of this. And you know, I like in Borderlands, like one of the first poems, like kind of talks about the waves like crashing in the like the border wall that's in the ocean.
Right.
And how that like it's both like pretty and calming, and also it's like corroding and violent. So I also was thinking about like this kind of like soft violence that occurs.
That feels very right to me. I think it's so interesting. You've talked a little bit about in the past about the thinky stage of making a book like this, and the makey stage of making a book like this. But I was also thinking about how those different moments or modes operate within the making of a particular image, and how sometimes I feel like an image like this maybe the idea of picturing a vulnerable body, an ambiguous body, a body whose, you know, circumstances are unclear, was something that you had in your pocket and were walking around with. But then out in the world, perhaps you saw this sort of furrow in the ground, and it suddenly they came together, and the thinky and the makey were at the same moment. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you're looking for out in the world as you're moving through the city or moving through other places, and how you sort of make pictures real out in the world, whether there's, you know, the ideas in your pocket or the things that you see that you can't look away from?
So yeah, there's like two things, right? There's like the ready-mades, like you go there and you're like, oh, the perfect picture, I'm just gonna steal it. And there is also there's things that are always in the back of my mind. And if you see my contact sheets, it's so obvious. You're like, oh, in this moment she was thinking about like going into a dark little cave, or in this, and you can like kind of like see me working through it until it's a picture that I'm like, this is it. I do think I might all of my life do pictures of me laying on the ground, just because there's something about it that I really gravitate towards. And it like, honestly, sometimes I have to stop myself, because every time that I'm go to post, I'm like, I'm gonna lay in the ground, and then I'm like, well, maybe I have too many pictures of the laying in the ground, maybe I can chill it with that. But there's something that laying in the ground does that like really few other, like no other things do, that it is like resonates so much to me. Now that I have a book, and maybe I'm like, I I've made my point with laying on the ground. Maybe I'm gonna chill it a little bit. But there, it is true that there's all of this images, and like, as a woman, and I did like grow up in Mexico, and like you read the news, and like you go and like see like all of this crazy pictures in the newspapers, and there's so much like violence against women, and there's all of these things that you do as a woman naturally have in the back of your head, pictures of yourself in these situations and how you are gonna be found. So I think it is very natural, a natural progress to like start thinking of myself that way.
Right.
Even if sometimes it's funny, even if sometimes like it is a funny thing, it is maybe like that is like a little bit of the inception of it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you've managed on some level through this book to sort of replicate or to translate your experience of moving through the world and having these ideas of things that are like percolating in your mind, and maybe finding places where they fit, but also being surprised by the things you encounter, because I feel like that is my experience as a reader of these images, as someone who's looking at them and moving through the world of your book and having ideas of who you are and the pictures that you make, but then also being surprised by some of the connections that maybe I hadn't seen before in, exhibitions that you've created, or just in looking at your pictures with you. So that feels like a very generous way to share your practice with a viewer.
I also think I want to kind of like go back to the idea of the swarm, because I think I don't understand my work without it being a swarm. Like I've been asked to like talk about particular pictures, and it's so hard for me because even though I could, I feel like my pictures are done a disservice when you're looking at them one by one. Because I think the power of them is not only in the images themselves, but in all the connections that are created around it. And I do think that's why I was like, it's gonna be 300 pages, and it's gonna be so many pictures, and it is. I don't even know how many pictures there are really in the book, because I can tell you how many like panels I edited, but some of these pictures have like so many pictures.
Yeah.
Because it is like a contact sheet.
Yeah.
So you're not looking at one picture at a time.
Right.
And I'm a maximalist. I'm Mexican. I can't help it. But also I do think it is the best way to serve the work. And there's all different kinds of photographers. There are photographers that like really think about the pictures and like imagine them for years. I'm more of like opportunistic, or like you are you see the opportunity, you go and take it, and you have like 3 minutes to take the picture. And even though I like can like think about like what if we do this, it still all happens very quickly, because it is I never like go out of my way to take pictures. It's all around my like life.
I remember seeing this photograph of your parents, of your father Alejandro, pulling your mom Ofelia through the V in this tree at Baxter Street, and being really struck by it. But I don't remember it being in proximity to this image of sort of a car wreck on the street in Brooklyn, I'm assuming. Can you talk about this pairing, which I feel like there's such an incredibly compelling visual rhyme here, but also I think you've managed to sort of construct a narrative, or offer the possibility of a narrative, and particularly the process of making this picture, which I think is an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I'm such a teacher, so I'm seeing this. I get this is a great example of like juxtaposition. But this picture in itself is doing something, and this picture in itself doing something. But like when you put them together, it's suddenly like it's not only about being born or birth or like whatever is happening here, but it's also about like maybe being taken out of wreckage, or there's this thing that happens when you have these pictures together that are seemingly unconnected. Of course, there's also all of this like lines that happen that are important, but like I feel like I could talk about this particular images for so long, because like one of them, like this one, I came back and took so many times because it happened outside my house, and like there was police there, and they were like, "What are you taking pictures of so much?" But I just wasn't happy with the picture that I was taking, and this was like the one with like the bird that came. That actually I was like, "This is it, I think." And this is my parents, and I feel like I've often testing how much my parents would do for me, and this feels like one of the ones where I'm like, I can't believe I make them did do this. And there's a way in which like my parents, and I think a lot of artists are gonna agree with me, where like your parents kind of like just want to be very helpful and just want to like do whatever's best for your thing. So some people have them drive to stuff, or like they like really like collaborate with you in so many ways. But my parents give me all of these great pictures, and I think they're both like have like this great presence in pictures that I can't say that it's all me. Like
Right.
there's so much that they're doing that like makes pictures great.
There's some sort of instinct around like the moment that will be strange or intriguing, or
I don't know. My dad, I don't know what it's about my dad, but my dad has a crazy way of posing. And I wish I had his instincts, because I'm like, wow, that was a crazy idea that it makes the picture amazing, but it's all him. Like
Yeah.
I can't take a lot of credit of what he does in pictures. He's just like has a good instinct.
Just unleash him and he'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think we should talk a little bit too about the two images that sort of open and close this book, aside from the self-portraits, the sort of little bracketing self-portraits. The last spread in the book is this beautiful, sort of warm, unusual, blurry image of you and your husband, Dylan, and feels like, again, that sort of golden light that I think of with your work, but maybe a cold day. And then this amazing image that opens the book, aside from the self-portrait, of you in the bathtub with this sort of more cold blue light. Can you talk a little bit about this pairing and why you chose it as sort of the containers for small death?
Yeah, I mean the first one, I wanted it to like really open with a bang. Like I wanted it for you to like open it and be like, whoa, we're in this. We're like, I'm ready for the book.
I think it's such a soft image.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
well, that's valid too. But also it's also an image that I've been like wanting to share for so long.
Yeah.
I like have been like keeping it in the back of my pocket, and I just wanted you to like know where you were right away, know where you were standing. And we were talking. It is like also like it is like a photographic picture. Like makes use of like kind of like capturing movement, and there's all of these things that are like that it's doing that are like so photographic and so like historical and so like
right. It's an art historical image. It's like
Yeah.
it's the death of Barat. It's Frida Kahlo's feet in the bathtub.
Exactly.
It's all of these things.
And the last one, it's almost like the opposite of it. Like it is like the frame is so wonky, it's out of focus. You can see like the shadow of the camera on me. Like it's like a wonky image, but I am looking right at you. So it is kind of like, to me, like this is so much about like the kind of, I wanted to finish and with you thinking about the future. So and that was like a way of me kind of like doing it. And I don't know, it's also like it is, there's some other pictures that are kind of like this but not really. And this feels like such like an accident,
Right.
but it is doing what I wanted it to do.
Right. Like that grid of the sprockets of the window blinds, that sort of structure, the geometry fractures a little bit in that last image, which feels like a really powerful statement about where you might journey next, or
Exactly.
the kinds of pictures that might occupy you. I also feel like it's such a warm, tender image. You're looking at the camera, which is quite a sort of intense confrontation, but Dylan's looking at you really intently, and that feels really lovely.
Yeah, and I did wanted it to like end with like a nice feeling when you look at the picture, when you look at the book and then you close it and then you have that feeling.
Can you talk a little bit about the title of the book and how you chose it?
Yes. So titling is hard and it doesn't come natural to me. But when the time came, I was like really thinking about what was like the best way to encapsulate this whole thing. And while I was sequencing, I caught myself saying out loud, kind of like, I'm gonna put this here because it feels like a small death. And then I said it and I was like, I think that's the title. I think the title has to be Small Death. And I even remember like calling a bunch of people being like, it's gonna be Small Death. What do you think? And they were like, yeah, I like it. And the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, yes, it's perfect. Because, you know, there's like a sexual thing to it, there's like a violence thing to it. It's also like, you know, if we're thinking about violence, there's also things that happen in your life that are small deaths where like you can't get it back. And, you know, sexual violence is one, but also like emigrating is another. Like, you know, you put your whole life literally and metaphorically in like some bags and then choose to leave some behind, including the person that you were gonna be.
Right.
So it just felt like the perfect title for like all of like what I wanted to do with the book.
And as a self-portrait, as
Yes.
thinking about past selves and
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Martha. This was such a lovely conversation, and I love your book so much. What a joy to hold it and be here with you. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think.
So Mila, for our favorite photo book from Asia of the Month, I want to talk about your new publication, Portrait of Jay. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure, thank you. This book is about collection of contemporary Japanese people taken by one of the most important Japanese photographer, Takashi Honma. He took like over 20 years to take a picture of anonymous and famous people, including Daido Moriyama, and then, you know, Mr. Nara, who is a famous artist as well. You know what? I want to ask you, what do you like about this book?
Well, I love this book, and I think the fact that these portraits, they feel so casual, and like you were saying, there's like these like iconic Japanese artists and people, but it's on the same like sequence as people who are just like everyday people, and it feels so contemporary, so it provides a full image of what people are actually like nowadays, and it's across different generations and different ways that people express themselves.
I think that many people find that the portrait is very simple and then casual, but I have to say that Mr. Homer really have like a profound gaze to each subject. I think this book stands out so well.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Bye.